Alright, for this lesson, it's chapter 39. We're going to multiply decimal numbers. And a lot of times kids mix up adding decimals and multiplying decimals. Two different processes. When you add or subtract decimals, you have to line up the place value. When you're multiplying decimals, you do not necessarily need to line up the decimal point or the place values. So let's go ahead and talk about this. So if you remember how to find area, you have a rectangle, and say this is 0.75 meters, and this is a problem out of the book, and this is 0.5 meters. You want to find out how many, what's the area of this shape, this rectangle. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to take the length, which is 0.75, and multiply it by the width, 0.5. You're going to take 0.75 multiplied by 0.5. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can multiply the decimals, or you can change them to fractions. And then, let me change this around a little bit so you can see me. Once you change them to fractions, then you can multiply fractions and then change it back to decimal. So 0.75. You guys have memorized your fractions, so you know that that's 3/4 multiplied by 1/2. When you multiply fractions, you go straight across. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 2 is 8. So then you have 3/8. And if you want to change this to a fraction, all you got to do is take top divided by bottom. If you want to change this fraction to a decimal, you got to take top divided by bottom. Let's go ahead and multiply this. There's a different way to do it. So you can take 0.75 and multiply it by 0.5. Notice, the decimal points aren't lined up. They don't need to be lined up if you're multiplying. If we were adding these two numbers, definitely you would need to line up the decimal points. Alright, so let's take 5 times 5, 25, carrier 2. This is same algorithm that you multiplied a lot of numbers by. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 2 is going to be 37. Alright, now this is where an important point. Some of you may already know this. Basically, you have to figure out where the decimal point goes there. If you have 75 cents and you multiply it by a half, or 0.5, you're not going to get $375. Okay? So, you got to figure out where the decimal point's going to go. Notice, in this column, the decimal point is over one space. And over here, 1, 2. Okay, that one's over 2 spaces. So add up how many total spaces that we've moved the decimal from the ending, the terminating number there. How many total spaces have we moved the decimal? And it's 3 total spaces. So that means if you move it over, if it has been moved over 3 spaces on top, then you have to move it over 3 places on bottom. 1, 2, 3 decimal points there. So your answer, 3/8, is equal to 0.375. So that's how many square meters there are on that rectangle. Alright, here's another problem. Multiply like normal. 7 times 5, 35. Carrier 3. 7 times 2 is 14. 15, 16, 17. Okay? The decimal point is 1 space plus 2 spaces over, so that means it's 1, 2, 3 spaces over down here. So your answer is 0.175. Very easy, straightforward. Okay, here's a little bit, we're combining what we learned last lesson with what we're learning this lesson. 2.5 squared, which is equal to 2.5 times 2.5. Basically, you take whatever's in there and you multiply it by itself this many times. So that would be 2 times. So let's write this out, up and down. It so happens that the decimal is lined up there, but that doesn't necessarily need to take place. 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. Cancel, cancel, placeholder 0. Same algorithm, nothing different. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. so we're going to get 625. Then, notice decimal point is 2 places over, or 1 space there, 1 space there. That adds up to 2, so that means you're going to move it 2 places over. So your answer is 6.25. Very easy. You guys will get this. You guys will ace it on the test. I have no doubt in my mind that you guys are going to do excellent. Let's go ahead and do the next problem. Okay, so 1 mile is equal to 1.6 kilometers. Alright, a kilometer, it's metric unit of measurement, and a kilometer is 1,000 meters. So 1 mile is about 1.6 kilometers. Alright, if you're going to run 3 miles, how many kilometers will you have run? And this is basically, we're converting miles to kilometers. This is a conversion. Alright, so what you're going to do is you're going to say 1.6 kilometers times, if it was 1 kilometer, you'd have 1.6. But there's 3 miles, okay? So there's 1.6 plus 1.6 plus 1.6. Repeated addition is multiplication, so I'm going to multiply that by 3. 3 times 6 is 18. Carry your 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Decimal is 1 place over. So, actually that's wrong. If you ran 3 miles, that's the same as running 4.8 kilometers. Alright, so this is easy stuff. You guys got it. Let's go ahead and go over a couple homework problems and we'll call it. Okay, let's go ahead and do number 1. And if you haven't noticed, your book, when you're doing your homework, right next to the problems, you'll see, right next to the number, right below the number, you'll see another little number. So problem number 1 has a 12 below it. That means that if you get confused, you can turn back to chapter 12 in your book, and it'll tell you how to do that problem, or give you the concepts that you need to do that problem. Okay, so Mount Everest, the world's tallest mountain, rises to an elevation of 29,000 29 feet above sea level. Okay, so that's how many feet above sea level Mount Everest is. And my parents were missionaries in Nepal. Nepal is a country that's right below China and above India. It's in that region, and that's where Mount Everest is. So if you wanted to climb Mount Everest, you would have to travel to Nepal. So let's go ahead. That's the answer to number 1. They just want you to write out the number. They give it to you in words, and they want you to write it out. Alright, if there are 3 feet in a yard, about how many yards above sea level is Mount Everest's peak? Alright, so 3 feet in a yard. So what you have to do for this one is you have to take 229,029 and you have to divide that by 3. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. 29,029 divided by 3. 3 can't go into 2. 3 will go into 29. Let's say 9 times, because 3 times 9 is 27. Subtract. 2 left over. Bring down your 0. 3 will go into 20. Let's say 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract. Got 2 left over. Bring down to 2. 3 will go into 22. 7 times. 3 times 7 is 21. Subtract. You have 1 left over. Bring down your 9. 3 will go into 19. 6 times. 3 times 6 is 18. Subtract. You got 1 left over. Let's do a mixed number. 1 over 3. So there is 9,676 and 1/3 yards in the height of Mount Everest. That's how tall Mount Everest is in yards above sea level. Alright, let's do a couple more problems. Number 7. I think number 7 looks interesting. You're going to take 1.23. You're going to add that to the square root of 16. And you're going to add that to 0.5. So there's a lot going on here. First thing you need to do is realize that square root of 16 is 4. Once you realize that, calculate that number, you bring everything down. Alright, when you guys get to a problem, and you're going across like this, you want to rewrite it up and down. Okay, so I'm going to take 1.23, write my decimal points, add them up. I do my decimal points first, that way I can line everything up. 4 goes in the 1 spot, right below 1, which is also in the 1 spot. I'll add a couple zeros because I can, and it'll help me when I add everything else up. 0.5 is in the 10th spot, so make sure it falls in the 10th column there. Add some zeros so I can add it up. Add all that. 3 plus 0 is 3, 5 plus 2 is 7, 4 plus 1 is 5. Okay, so that's your answer, 5.73. Alright, problem 15, LCM of 2, 3, and 6. Remember, M stands for multiply, so we are multiplying. 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Alright, multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. Multiples of 6. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, and 60. Alright, these are multiples. So we want the least common multiple that they all have in common. So 2. 3 and 6 don't have 2 in common. 4, nope. 6, do they all have 6 in common? Is that the least common multiple? I think it is. So I think 6 is going to be our least common multiple. They do have other common multiples, but those multiples would be not the least. It wouldn't be the smallest. Alright, so our answer for this is 6 is the LCM for this situation. Alright, yeah, like 12. 12 would be a common multiple, but it's not the least.
Hi, my name is Israel, and I'm playing, I don't know what song it's called, but you might know it. Okay? It's Maryland mixed with the Fifth.
Wow, good job, Israel. I'm impressed.